dictators like Putin is to use force. We haven't supported Ukraine fast enough and not big enough amounts of support so that Ukraine could win this war. If Ukraine would have gotten already 2022 all the support that's been given it during these 3.5 years, the war would have ended already because the Russian armed forces, autumn 22, were on their knees totally. But since in West people think that, well, we can't provoke Russia, we have to think about how we support Ukraine so that we don't cross any red lines. We've given Putin time to recover from all these losses and created the situation where the war just continues.
Yeah, Mr. Toveri, speaking about Ukrainian military strength, how do you evaluate the Ukrainian armed forces' latest successful actions, and what do they signal about Ukraine's current battlefield capabilities and resilience?
Well, it tells that Ukrainian armed forces are excellent in innovation, using technologies in very innovative way, thinking ways to surprise the Russians. Plus, then in the front lines, the Ukrainian armed forces have shown huge resilience and stamina, continue fighting even though they are facing overwhelming odds. I'd say the biggest message is that Russia is not about to win, and Ukraine is not about to lose this war. But what we should do, again, is from Western side is to double our support to Ukraine, for example, because continuing supporting Ukraine in this current level just means that war tracks on because we don't give Ukraine enough measures, tools to win this war.
Yeah, but I've heard the idea from Western journalists and analytics that these successful missions of Ukraine, it will not change anything like serious on the battlefield, but it has a serious psychological effect. Do you agree with that, and why?
Yeah, I totally agree. Russia is using these strategic bombers mainly to send missiles to hit Ukrainian civilian infrastructure to kill civilians. It doesn't have too much effect on Ukrainian armed forces military capability. But the fact that you were able to hit thousands of kilometers inside Russia and their most valuable strategic assets this easily creates shockwaves through the Russian armed forces and Russian government. They've been paranoid already. They will be even much more paranoid because now everything, every single truck can be a platform for attack against them. So this will tie up a lot of their resources to internal security, which hopefully are away from the front lines.
Yeah, and based on your assessments, how close is Ukraine to becoming military independent? Is this a realistic scenario in the near future?
Well, I wouldn't say it in the near future. It will take several years, and I think that another area where West could support more. Ukraine has done wonderful things with your defense industry. You have increased the capacity of your defense industry over 30 times in 3.5 years. Meanwhile, in West, we are still talking about it. So the most wise thing for us would be to support Ukraine, give money to Ukrainian government so that Ukrainian government could put your own defense industry to work. So that, and if you would do that in a couple of years, I'm pretty sure that Ukrainian defense industry would be able to supply the armed forces in the needed levels. But since this hasn't happened yet, I think that it will take 2-3 more years before we are in that point.
And how do you assess the idea of Ukrainian forces to create Ukrainian air defense?
Well, I think that again, the same thing that you have good grounds for that. You've used in the beginning of the war, the Ukrainian armed forces used its old Soviet air defense capabilities, S-300 systems and Buk systems and so on, very successfully denying Russian Air Forces the possibility of taking air supremacy over Ukraine, which was a great achievement considering the odds. Some of the most capable Western systems, like Patriots, starting to develop those kind of systems or building those kind of systems in Ukraine. I think that might take a little bit more time and effort, and it would require the technological changes and movement this technology to Ukrainian defense industry. So it would take a little bit more time, I think.
But it's not like mission is impossible, right?
No, it's not a mission impossible. And the fact is that most of the aerial targets hitting Ukraine, like cruise missiles, the Shahed, like UAVs, and so on, they are down by Ukrainian armed forces with the weapon systems that Ukrainian defense industry can build. The biggest problem is kind of like ballistic missiles, where you require high-end air defense system like Patriot. So those systems are a bit more demanding to build.
And speaking about the support of Europe, more concrete, what steps should Europe take next to support Ukraine? Military, politically, economically? Are EU institutions moving fast and decisively enough from your perspective?
Well, my personal view is that we are moving far too slow. I think that current discussion is that if United States withdraws its support, we have to replace it. And my message in the Parliament and to European Union Commission has been that replacing the American support is not enough, because that would mean that we just continue supporting at the current level, which has created a long war, which bleeds Ukrainians to death slowly. No, we should double the support so that Ukraine has a capability, as I said, to win this war fast and stop the killing in the front lines. But same time as we should increase the support to Ukraine, direct support to Ukrainian civilian society, direct support, military support, and funding for Ukrainian defense industry. We should also go to offensive, attack the Russian capability to wage this war through much tougher sanctions. You know, the EU is preparing the 18th sanction package, which will hit the Russian oil industries. But all these packages, in my opinion, are too slow and too little. And a lot of things can be done within EU, because we are still EU countries are buying gas and oil from Russia. Still, the big part of the shadow fleet is flagged to European Union countries and owned by European Union citizens. And we should hit those to hit the Russian government's economy.
Yeah, and you're saying that still EU buying gas from Russia. Do you mean Hungary and Slovakia?
Well, Hungary and Slovakia are a problem when we talk about Ukraine's EU integration, and yes, in some cases in making sanctions and so on. And definitely we should deal with these two countries very decisively, so that they can't sabotage our efforts to support Ukraine. And again, there we should be also much more forceful and use all the tools we have in the box to make those two countries' life difficult if they don't cooperate.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the United States kind of isolation from the world. How do you assess President Trump's strategy of flattery and threats in dealing with the dictator Putin? Did you personally expect this kind of behavior from the United States president?
Well, unfortunately, yes. Seeing how Mr. Trump was with Putin during his first term, we saw that he don't understand Putin. He admires Putin. He refuses to see what kind of dictator and murderer Putin is. And problem is that his second government is filled with people who don't have same kind of background and as Trump's first administration had. In the first administration, you had many seasoned generals